Hello, my beautiful jewels, and welcome back to the Fishbowl with Jade, where we put on our scuba gear, dive beneath the surface, and explore the conversations people are thinking about but may not always be talking about. Here in the bowl, we don't just discuss what's happening, we ask why it's happening. We look beneath the surface to understand the people, the systems, and the decisions that shape our everyday experiences. So, grab your scuba gear, adjust your mask, and let's dive deep. When people hear the word representation, many immediately think about race, gender, nationality, or age. Those conversations certainly have their place, but today I'm talking about a different kind of representation. I'm talking about the culture an organization chooses to represent every single day. Every company has one, whether it's intentional or not. The moment a customer walks through your doors, visits your website, calls your office, or speaks with one of your employees, they're experiencing your culture. They haven't read your mission statement. They don't know what your values are posted on the break room wall. What they know is how your organization made them feel. Customers experience your culture long before they experience your product. And sometimes that first impression determines whether they ever become a customer at all. Lately, I've found myself doing something I never imagined I would do. I've walked into businesses, looked around for a few moments, and then quietly walked right back out. It wasn't because the business was dirty. It wasn't because the prices were too high. It wasn't because they didn't have what I needed. It was because the atmosphere immediately told me something about the organization. I've walked into restaurants where explicit music was playing while families with small children were trying to enjoy dinner together. I've visited gyms where the playlist made me wonder who the environment was really designed for. I've stood in stores while employees openly argued with one another, complained about management, vented about coworkers, or discussed personal problems while customers waited to be helped. In those moments, I wasn't just observing individual employees. I was observing the culture that leadership had either intentionally created or unintentionally allowed to exist. Then there are those businesses that remind you exactly why customer service still matters. You walk through the front door and someone smiles before you even say a word. Someone greets you with enthusiasm instead of obligation. They thank you for coming in. They ask how they can help. They make eye contact. They answer your questions without making you feel like you're interrupting their day. Sometimes they even end the interaction by saying, "It's my pleasure." Those words may seem simple, but they communicate something much larger. They communicate that serving customers isn't an inconvenience. It's part of the organization's identity. You leave those businesses feeling valued, respected, and appreciated, and before you know it, you're recommending them to your family and friends. That's the power of culture. As a business owner, I understand this lesson from both sides of the counter. When my spouse and I started our business, we were entering an industry where many of our competitors had decades of experience. We couldn't honestly say we had been doing it longer than everyone else because that simply wasn't true. But we also knew experience wasn't the only thing customers were looking for. We made a decision early on that if we couldn't compete on years alone, we would compete on service. We committed ourselves to returning phone calls, following up with customers, communicating throughout the process, standing behind our product, honoring our timelines whenever possible, and representing ourselves professionally. We wanted every customer to feel like they mattered, not because they were making a purchase, but because they had trusted us with their business. We learned something very quickly. People don't always remember every detail of what you sold them, but they almost always remember how you treated them. That lesson applies whether you're running a family business, managing a Fortune 500 company, answering phones in a call center, working behind a retail counter, or greeting customers at the front desk. Every employee represents the organization. Customers don't separate the individual from the business. If a cashier is rude, customers don't usually say, "That cashier was rude." They often say, "That store has terrible customer service." If a receptionist is dismissive, they don't say, "That receptionist was having a bad day." They say, "I don't like dealing with that company." Every interaction becomes part of the organization's reputation because every employee is representing the brand. That brings me to leadership. One statement I've heard over the years is, "I'm not responsible for how grown adults behave." I respectfully disagree. Are leaders responsible for every decision an employee makes? No. Adults are accountable for their own behavior, but leaders absolutely influence culture. Leadership sets expectations. Leadership models behavior. Leadership decides what gets rewarded, what gets corrected, and what gets ignored. What leadership consistently tolerates eventually becomes the organization's standard. If disrespect is ignored, it spreads. If professionalism is celebrated, it spreads. If accountability disappears, the culture eventually follows. Culture doesn't happen by accident. It is either intentionally cultivated or unintentionally created. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is believing employees do what leadership says. In reality, employees are far more likely to do what leadership does. If managers gossip, employees learn that gossip is acceptable. If supervisors disrespect customers, employees begin to believe courtesy isn't important. If leaders consistently demonstrate patience, professionalism, and accountability, employees begin to mirror those behaviors as well. Culture isn't created during orientation. It's created every single day by the behaviors people observe and experience. Customers may never meet the CEO, but they experience leadership through every employee they encounter. There is another group we should acknowledge in this conversation, and that's the employees who consistently get it right. Every day, there are customer service professionals who show up with a smile, despite dealing with difficult customers, staffing shortages, changing expectations, and increasing workloads. They greet people with kindness. They solve problems. They remain patient under pressure. They represent their organizations with professionalism, even when no one is watching. Those employees deserve recognition because exceptional customer service still exists. We often spend so much time talking about poor service that we forget to celebrate those who quietly create outstanding experiences every single day. Now, let's look at this from the employee's perspective. Working with the public has never been easy, and in many ways, it has become even more challenging. Employees today are expected to do more with fewer resources. Customers often expect immediate solutions. Staffing shortages place additional responsibilities on existing employees. Social media has increased public scrutiny, and one difficult interaction can become a viral video viewed by millions of people. Burnout is real. Stress is real. That doesn't excuse poor behavior, but it does help explain why organizations must invest not only in training, but also in supporting the people who represent them. Let's also consider the customer's perspective. Customers have more choices today than ever before. If they don't like one business, another one is often only a few clicks away. Customers expect speed, convenience, professionalism, accuracy, and courtesy. They aren't simply purchasing a product anymore. They're purchasing an experience. Sometimes businesses believe they're losing customers because of pricing, when in reality, they're losing them because of atmosphere. Customers don't always complain. Many simply leave and never return. They don't write a review. They don't ask to speak with a manager. They quietly take their business elsewhere. The invisible customer may be the most important customer of all because you'll never know why they didn't come back. Another factor changing customer service is social media. Years ago, one bad customer experience might have been shared with a handful of friends. Today, one interaction can reach thousands or even millions of people within hours. Every employee carries the potential to become the face of an organization's reputation, whether they intended to or not. Every customer carries a smartphone capable of documenting both exceptional and disappointing service. Representation has become more public than ever before, making organizational culture even more important. This brings us to artificial intelligence. AI is rapidly changing the way organizations interact with customers. We see AI answering questions, scheduling appointments, processing returns, and handling routine requests. Some customers appreciate the speed and convenience. Others miss the human connection. Rather than asking whether AI is replacing people, perhaps we should ask why organizations are investing so heavily in these technologies. Certainly, efficiency and cost play significant roles. AI is available 24 hours a day, doesn't call in sick, and can assist multiple customers simultaneously. But there is another question worth considering. Has inconsistent customer service made automation more attractive? AI doesn't have a bad day. AI doesn't roll its eyes. AI doesn't argue with coworkers in front of customers. AI doesn't allow personal frustrations to affect the next interaction. At the same time, AI cannot genuinely empathize with someone experiencing a crisis. It cannot replace human compassion, emotional intelligence, or the ability to build authentic relationships. The future may not be about choosing between people and technology. It may be about using each where it performs best. Perhaps the biggest lesson in all of this is that customer service has never really been about transactions. It's about trust. It's about relationships. It's about consistency. Businesses spend millions of dollars on marketing campaigns designed to attract customers. Yet a single poor interaction can undo what advertising spent years trying to build. People may come because of your advertising, but they return because of your experience. Customers rarely remember the exact words printed in your mission statement. They remember the smile they received, the problem that was solved, the kindness that was shown, or the indifference they encountered. Those moments become your reputation. So today I want to leave you with a few questions to carry with you. What does your organization's culture say before anyone introduces themselves? If you own a business, what behaviors are you intentionally rewarding? If you're a leader, what behaviors are you unintentionally tolerating? If you're an employee, do you understand that every customer interaction shapes the reputation of the organization you represent? And finally, as artificial intelligence continues to become part of our everyday customer experience, will organizations use it simply to improve efficiency, or will it become a reminder that customers have always wanted something remarkably simple: to feel respected, heard, and valued? Every organization has a culture. The question isn't whether you have one. The question is whether you're creating it intentionally or allowing it to create itself. Because at the end of the day, products can be copied, prices can be matched, and technology will continue to evolve. But a culture built on respect, professionalism, accountability, and genuine care will always be one of the greatest competitive advantages a business can have. And that's a conversation worth putting in the bowl. Until next time, I'll see you in the bowl on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Good Pods, YouTube, Amazon Audible, and iHeartRadio. Search the Fishbowl with Jade. Thank you for sitting in the bowl with me. Now let's come back to the surface. Stay classy, stay curious, stay ever evolving, and I'll see you in the next dive.